Good morning and welcome to all our distinguished guests to the Damuri Ballroom, Jakarta. Please kindly enter the room and take your seats as the event will commence shortly. Once again, good morning and welcome to all our distinguished guests to the Damuri Ballroom, Jakarta. We kindly invite you to enter the room, take your seats as the event will commence shortly. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished guests. We are so honored to have you all here and welcome to the Saver Internet Lab Dialogue on Internet Safety. Please give a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Before we commence this event, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Bhatia. It is a great pleasure to be here as your Master of Ceremonies today. So ladies and gentlemen, all distinguished guests, the Saver Internet Lab, SAIL, a joint initiative by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, and Google launched in December 2022, is dedicated to combating misinformation in Indonesia through collaborative research and multi-stakeholder engagement. By working with a team of experts, SAIL aims to foster understanding of misinformation spread and the role of tech platforms, thereby enabling policymakers and fact-checkers to uphold public trust. The upcoming SAIL dialogue will expound on SAIL's year-long research findings and visions for the future. Before we proceed to the opening remarks, we would like to warmly greet some of our distinguished guests that are present on this room today. Good morning, Ibu Mira Tayyiba, Secretary General of Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Indonesia. Welcome, Ibu. Bapak Yose Rizal Damuri, Executive Director CSIS Indonesia. Mr. Karan Bhatia, Global Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy Google. Ibu Ida Rumondang H Sipahutar, Head of Researchers Group OJK Institute. Ibu Putri Alam, Director of Government Affairs and Public Policy Google Indonesia. Mr. Jean Jacqua, Asia Pacific Information Policy Lead and Global Telecommunications Policy Lead Google. Mr. Jonathan Tan Ghee Tiong, Head Culture and Information Division, Sustainable Development Directorate, ASEAN Secretariat. Mr. Andrew Ure, Managing Director, Government Affairs and Public Policy, Southeast Asia, Google. Mr. Miklos Gaspar, Director, UN Information Center. Ibu Anita Wahid, Public Virtue Research Institute. Bapak Yoga Sangkan Prasetya, Coordinator for Economy Cooperation, Center of International Affairs, Ministry of Communications and Informations of the Republic of Indonesia. Bapak Philips J. Vermonte, Senior Fellow CSIS Indonesia, and of course, all the invited guests and media who came to the SAIL Dialogue on Internet Safety. Please give a big round of applause to all of us. Again, thank you so much for joining us today and for participating on this exceptional occasion. So ladies and gentlemen, before we commence this event, I kindly invite all attendees to stand for a moment as we sing the national anthem, Indonesia Raya. Distinguished guests, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the SAIL Dialogue on Internet Safety aims to address the critical issue of misinformation in Indonesia and beyond. The purpose of the event is to launch and discuss significant research findings and foster collaborative efforts to combat misinformation in Indonesia and the expansion to Asia Pacific. So without further ado, may I first welcome Bapak Yose Rizal Damuri, Executive Director CSIS Indonesia, to deliver his opening remarks.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. A warm welcome, actually, to the Safer Internet Lab Dialogue or SAIL Dialogue. Oh, I think I need to, how to do it? Oh. Mana sih? Tolong dong. Enggak, ya, saya bisa lihatnya yang mana? Oh, sorry for the technical issues. Sometimes the technology helps a lot of us, but sometimes create confusion, especially for the older generations like me. So anyway, welcome to the Safer Internet Lab Dialogue or SAIL Dialogue. Today the weather is a bit gloomy, I think. Rainy day that we have today, but I hope it won't prevent us from having good discussions, having productive discussion today. Because actually what we have in this dialogue is very important. And we will listen to the presentations of our researchers at CSIS and also our partners that will present our sales research output in the past year. And then after that, there will be also panel discussions stressing important issues such as the inclusive regional collaborations and also public-private partnership, for example, as well as AI utilizations to manifest effective information governance. Those are very important topic indeed. In addition, also, the organizer actually asked me to briefly introduce about sales activities during the last year. But before going to that brief introductions, I would like also to extend my warm welcome, especially, and extend our appreciations to the presence of our guest of honors, Ibu Mira Tayyiba, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Indonesia. Thank you very much for your presence here. Of course, also to our partners, represented by Mr. Karan Bhatia, the Global Head of Government Affairs Public Policy, Google. Thank you very much, sir, for the support and for collaborations. From Google, I also see some familiar face here, Ibu Putri Alam, Mr. Andrew, for example. So thank you very much for the presence in this event. I also would like to welcome Ibu Ida Rumondang, the Sipahutar, the head of researchers group of OJK Institute. And also to our speakers of panel discussions, welcome to our events, and then thank you very much for your presence. There is Mr. Zhangzak from Google, Mr. Jonathan Ghee Tiong from ASEAN Secretariat, also Mr. Miklos Gaspar from UN Information Center, and Ibu Anita Wahid from the Public Virtue Research Institute. So, well, I was asked by the organizer actually also to introduce a little bit about SAIL. And you can say that, you can see that SAIL is intended to know more or to make the internet safer by trying to look at, by trying to know and to understand more about various issues related to the digital platforms. And we started our endeavor to make internet safer since the end of 2022. And we are very fortunate actually to collaborate with Google in this initiative. Since its establishment, SAIL has always employed multidisciplinary approach to fully capture the phenomenon of information disorder. And I think through the partnership with Google, we also identified the policy problems of these informations carefully, and also try to have some measures or give some recommendations accordingly. In order to achieve the objective, we set up 3 working groups. The first working group objective is to discourage information actors by showcasing how they operate, what motivates them, and how they interact with other relevant actors. The second working group works mostly on the users by promoting the vital role of digital, political, and information literacy. And the third working group explore some alternative co-governance model of internet governance. So during the years, in order to achieve those objectives, and also with the 3 working group, we have several activities that I would briefly introduce here. The first activities are related to the general elections. As we know that this year we have general elections, or a very important general elections, because it will introduce new administrations. And the process has been going on for the last several years. And we engage with various government entities such as Kominfo, for example, the KPU, the elections commissions, and many others, as well as also to the participations of the election participations, such as political parties and presidential candidates. So we did a lot of discussions with all of those stakeholders related to the general election. And another attempt that we try to do during these first years of SAIL is actually to become dialogue partners for international communities, such as the Foreign Ministry of Indonesia, and also foreign ministries of several other countries in the Southeast Asia, as well as with the UN, the ASEAN Secretariat, and also several embassies, such as the US, British, Australian, and Singaporean embassy as well. And last year, we also introduced the Internet Governance Forum, IGF, the leading multi-stakeholder dialogue platform on issues of internet governance. I would like also to mention about another activities that we did last year. We're still doing this year as well. Last year and this year, it's try to advance the scholarly discourse at the regional level by conducting various discussions in Indonesia and also in the scope of Southeast Asia. We are also chairing, for example, the Global Internet Governance Actors, Regulation, Transactions, and Strategies, and also the European Associations of Southeast Asian Studies, or EuroSEAS. And for sure, to broaden our reach, SAIL also successfully wrote several op-eds in prominent newspapers in Indonesia as well as in the regions. We are also publishing research reports and policy brief aim at informing policymakers on the state of our information environment in 2024 election mega cycle across the world. With all these publications, we tried to contextually become relevant and substantially impactful to the discourse of politics, information, and also technology. With all the achievement here, the next question for sure is that what we will do next in our endeavor toward trying to make the internet safer. Yes. Next year, or the next step of our SAIL initiative is that we will try to expand our research team, positioning internet safety in Asia Pacific as an umbrella issue for issues such as deepfakes or online fraud, information manipulation and interference, and disinformation and democratic resilience. The novelty of online frauds and information manipulations will enrich our current focus on disinformation and democratic resilience and widen the opportunity for academics, expert, professional, and also government officials from various disciplines. We are also going to enter the new areas of disinformation, such as, for example, in the area of financial sectors and many other areas. One of the news that we would like also to share with you is that the SAIL has officially become the first Indonesia-based research hub to be a member of the Global Network of Internet and Society Research Center. This is a global scholarly initiative founded by Harvard, MIT, and Oxford University, along with other reputable research institutions that connects reputable institutions globally with similar objective. SAIL managed to become one member of this very prestigious network. I think I also like to give appreciation to our team and also for sure to our partners in Google. Thank you very much again. We really expect that this network collaborations will magnify the reach of our collective work while also playing a very important part as one of our censorship system. I think I should stop here my opening remark. Perhaps it has been a bit too long, but I really appreciate for all of you to making time to attend these events, and I really hope you will enjoy all the sessions we provided and also provide more suggestions to us. We are still very open to suggestions on what we're going to do, what we're going to endeavor for make the internet, the digital experience safer in the future. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Bapak Yose, for the insightful opening remarks. Thank you, Bapak. It is now my distinct pleasure to welcome Secretary General of Ministry of Communication and Information Technology of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ibu Mira Tayyiba.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, very good morning. First of all, congratulations, Pak Yose. Only a year, but you already did so much. We expect more from you now. So, thank you, Bapak Karan Bhatia, Global Vice President of Government Affairs and Public Policy of Google, Bapak Yose Rizal Damuri, Executive Director of CSIS Indonesia, Director of the UN Information Center in Jakarta, Mr. Miklos Gaspar, Head of Culture and Information Division of the ASEAN Secretariat, Mr. Jonathan Tan Ghee Tiong, Head of Researcher Group of the OJK Institute, Ibu Ida Rumondang, Founder and Board Member of Public Virtue Institute, Ibu Anita Wahid, and esteemed speakers, moderators, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to CSIS Indonesia and Google for organizing this significant event. Fostering dialogue and collaboration on the critical issue of information integrity in digital era are commendable. It is my honor to represent the Minister of Communications and Informatics today at the Safer Internet Lab SAIL Disinformation Dialogue towards information integrity in Southeast Asia. His Excellency Minister sends his warmest regards and sincere apologies for not being able to attend in person, and he has entrusted me with the important task of conveying our collective commitment to address the challenges posed by disinformation and the regulation of online content. In an era defined by interconnectedness, the integrity of information and content available online stands as a cornerstone for democratic discourse, economic stability, societal cohesion, and security. Yet, the pervasive spread of dis- and misinformation undermines this integrity, sowing seeds of doubt and discord among communities worldwide. Last year, Reuters Institute for Study of Journalism reported that 56% of internet users worldwide have seen false information or content, both on social media and online news channels. While 64% of social media users across the world have concerns about the trustworthiness and validity of news circulating online. Furthermore, the misuse and abuse of emerging technologies such as AI can exacerbate the spread of disinformation. Some alarming examples are the creation of deepfakes and proliferation of synthetic information, which both can distort reality and deceive the public. In April last year, NewsGuard identified 49 websites spanning 7 languages that appear to be entirely or mostly generated by AI language models designed to mimic human communication in the form of what appear to be typical news websites. Such alarming findings are further perplexing, as it is projected by the Europol that as much as 90% of online content may be synthetically generated or modified by 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is the home of 221.5 million internet users, whereas 97.8% of such number are active social media users aged between 16 to 64 years old, with average amount of time screen of social media is 3 hours and 11 minutes. The government is acutely aware of the challenge of dis- and misinformation. In a time when anything can easily go viral, the Indonesian Ministry of Communications and Informatics Kominfo has taken comprehensive measures to combat the threat of dis- and misinformation through multifaceted approach, where collaboration is at the heart of such endeavor. At the upstream level, Kominfo believes that digital and media literacy are fundamental to empower the people to navigate themselves amidst the turbulent torrent of online information. Through the National Movement for Digital Literacy, in collaboration with various communities, academics, and other government institutions, Kominfo provides various modules and related training for Indonesians, including to improve their capacity to digest any information critically, as well as to identify and deal with dis- and misinformation. At the midstream level, in collaboration again with numerous digital platforms, Kominfo takes steps to prevent the spread of hoaxes through fact-checking processes and content moderation. As of June 1st, 2024, this year, Kominfo has identified and handled more than 13,000 issues of hoaxes and 5.7 million of negative contents in the digital space. This aims to ensure the integrity of information available online while cutting off the flow of dis and misinformation. Finally, at the downstream level, by providing necessary and relevant data, Kominfo plays an active role in supporting law enforcement carried out by the Indonesian National Police Force against the spread of dis and misinformation. And to complement such effort, a fair playing field between conventional media and algorithm-based digital platforms to uphold journalistic ethics and ensure unfettered access to information is paramount. Additionally, active contribution and prompt responsiveness of digital platforms in moderating negative content are vital to maintain the integrity of online information and fostering trust in the digital space and in digital economy. In December last year, Indonesia issued a circular letter regarding the ethics of artificial intelligence. This initiative underscores our commitment to ensuring that AI technologies are developed and utilized in a manner that is ethical, transparent, responsible, and accountable, aiming to prevent its misuse and ensure that AI contribute positively to society. On the regional level, Indonesia has spearheaded the issuance of the ASEAN Guideline in Management of Government Information in Combating Fake News and Disinformation in the Media. This guideline, issued in March 2024, already adopted by ASEAN, reflects our commitment to regional cooperation and collective action in combating disinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, combating dis and misinformation and regulating online content require a concerted effort from all stakeholders at all levels, nationally, regionally, and globally. It is essential to underscore that collaboration extends beyond governments and institutions. It must also involve the active participation and willingness of society. Public vigilance and community engagement are vital to identifying and countering disinformation. The government of Indonesia remains steadfast in our dedication to these efforts and looks forward to working closely with our partners to achieve a safer and more reliable digital environment for all. Events like today's dialogue are crucial in fostering cooperation, sharing best practices, and developing innovative solutions. Once again, I would like to thank CSIS Indonesia and Google for this important initiative, and to all of you for your commitment to combating dis and misinformation. Together, we can navigate the complexities of the digital age and ensure the integrity of information in Southeast Asia. And thank you. I wish you a fruitful and enriching discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Mira Tayyiba, for your keynote speech. So ladies and gentlemen, for our next address, it is my honor to invite Mr. Karan Bhatia, Global Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy at Google. Please welcome.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. Ms. Mira Tayyiba, Secretary General of the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, Mr. Yose Rizal, Executive Director of the Center of Strategic and International Studies, Mr. Miklos Gaspar, Director of the UN Information Center, Ms. Ida Rumondang, Head of Research at the Financial Services Authority, OJK, and Mr. Jonathan Tang of the Culture and Information Division at the ASEAN Secretariat, esteemed guests, colleagues, partners, thank you for joining us here today. My name is Karan Bhatia. I lead the Government Affairs and Public Policy team at Google, based in Washington, D.C., but I am thrilled to be here today in Jakarta. to discuss the efforts of this group to create a safer online environment for everyone. You know, at Google, this subject is a topic that we take very seriously. The rise of online threats, such as misinformation and scams, and the misuse of technologies like deepfakes to deceive and manipulate the public, threaten user trust. And for us, that is paramount. The threats are fundamentally incompatible with Google's mission, which is to organize the world's information and to make it universally accessible and useful. No single entity can solve this problem alone. It requires a collective, united front and a common commitment, which is why we are so proud to be part of the Safer Internet Lab sale. Over the past year, the center has been engaged in research and other meaningful activities and hosted a number of important dialogues, such as the one we're at today. The success of the center has led us at Google to want to do more. We want to be completely supportive of the expansion of SAIL across Southeast Asia and the Asia-Pacific region. Under the expanded remit, the center will also look into new online safety issues that are emerging with respect to scams and fraud. And consistent with Indonesia's broader leadership position, we believe that the center can play an influential role from right here in Indonesia to inform regional and global discussions on how we can make the online environment safer for everyone. At Google, to protect our users, we've invested in advanced protections and policies that aim to prevent, detect, and respond to harmful content. Our efforts are focused on building secure by default products and partnering with ecosystem partners to create a safer internet. The results, we think, speak for themselves. For example, in Gmail, we have been able to block 99.9% of spam, malware, and dangerous links from ever reaching users' Gmail inboxes. With respect to online ads, last year, we blocked or removed more than 200 million advertisements for violating our misrepresentation policies, capturing many scams and disinformation tactics. Google's leading position in the development of artificial intelligence, for us, we believe, has been a huge asset in this fight. New AI-powered tools have been critical in detecting and addressing these threats. Tools like SynthID, which enables watermarking and identifying AI-generated images and audio, are key assets in the fight against disinformation and fraud. But we recognize that this is a shared challenge. So at the same time that we've been developing our own tools, we've also been building partnerships to strengthen the online ecosystem. Ahead of the 2024 elections, for example, we partnered with the election committee here and other ecosystem partners to launch a pre-bunking user education initiative. You've heard of debunking after the fact. Pre-bunking becomes beforehand to help educate users about potential disinformation risks before they are launched. The campaign has reached over 57 million users, and on YouTube, we launched a similar Hit Pause campaign in partnership with What's Up Indonesia and Think Policy, a community organization focusing on evidence-based policymaking. And we have been particularly focused on the protection of the elderly and youth, supporting Mafindo with a $2.5 million US dollar grant from our philanthropic arm, Google.org, to equip those communities with the skills needed to identify misinformation, hate speech, hoaxes, and digital scams. Over the past 9 months, this program has helped more than 63,000 people across all 38 provinces. We have fostered strong partnerships with organizations, fact-checking communities like CheckFakta, media outlets, civil society groups across the ecosystem to share knowledge, pool resources, and amplify our collective impact. Today, allow me to share a video about our partnership with CheckFacta. I think we will put this up right now.
Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, keberagaman di atas persatuan. Ini yang harus menjadi salah satu aktivitas penting ketika kita mencari solusi-solusi atas segala persoalan yang ada di negeri Indonesia ini. Tetapi ketika ada sebuah misinformasi dibungkus dengan provokasi, agitasi, itu bisa membuat keberagaman kita menjadi bencana. Ketika pasca pemilu 2014, polarisasi sangat tinggi di Indonesia, dan di sana kita mengalami banjir misinformasi.
Sebuah kabar itu bisa dimanipulasi sedemikian rupa, disebarkan dengan cepat, karena orang tidak mengecek akurasi kabar yang mereka terima.
Nggak mungkin media punya telinga yang bisa mendengarkan jutaan orang yang sedang bercakap-cakap tentang berbagai isu di berbagai platform.
Kita perlu kolaborasi, kita perlu meningkatkan kapasitas kita sebagai jurnalis.
Di Trusted Media Summit, gagasan tentang cekfakta.com sebagai sebuah kolaborasi sejumlah media muncul pertama kali dari percakapan yang diselenggarakan oleh Google News Initiative.
Cekfakta.com ini kan menjadi rumah yang terbuka dalam konteks kita merangkul sebanyak mungkin media.
Kami dengan bantuan Google News Initiative akhirnya muncul dengan satu modul lengkap untuk pelatihan cekfakta dan verifikasi.
Cekfakta.com saat ini menjadi salah satu tulang punggung di Indonesia bagaimana kita bisa melawan penyebaran hoax dan juga mengedukasi masyarakat. Itu ada lebih dari 10.000 artikel periksa fakta yang kita muat di cekfakta.com.
Ini bukan kepentingan satu media, bukan kepentingan satu perusahaan. Ini tentang bagaimana membuat ekosistem informasi yang reliable, yang akurat, yang kredibel.
Tetapi kita harus sepakat dalam satu hal, bahwa kedustaan, kebohongan, itu harus menjadi lawan kita bersama. Karena taruhannya sangat besar. Taruhannya adalah kedamaian dan juga bagaimana keberlanjutan dari negeri Indonesia kita ini.
Thank you. We are very proud of our partnership with CheckFacta, and in fact, as of today, it has trained over 100,000 journalists and journalism students across the nation. Through our partnerships with CheckFacta and other organizations, we realized that while our efforts to promote digital and media literacy were good, we needed to do even more to address the root causes of misinformation. We identified a gap that we needed a deeper understanding of how this harmful content originates and spreads. We also recognize the incredible and unique potential of Indonesia with its rich diversity, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, and strong spirit of communal collaboration, gotong royong, that they can be key assets in creating a safer internet. The realization led us to partner with the Center for Strategic and International Studies here in Jakarta to launch SAIL. As Mr. Yose said earlier, SAIL really has been a groundbreaking initiative that has brought together experts from diverse fields to study the disinformation landscape in depth and to inform action. Our goal with SAIL has been ambitious, but essential, to move beyond simply reacting to false information and instead to work proactively to prevent it from taking hold in the first place. We believe that by understanding the mechanisms behind misinformation and related threats such as scams, we can develop more effective strategies to protect users and build more resilient online ecosystems. Today, we're glad to support SAIL's new research program into scams and deepfakes. We think it will deliver greater insights on the problem and how to address it. And later this month, we will also issue a comprehensive white paper detailing how Google tackles online scams and frauds. The paper will suggest ways in which we can all collaborate across society to fight it together. For example, through technical solutions, awareness-raising programs, and operational cooperation. What will remain constant is our commitment, steadfast commitment to tackling misinformation, online scams and fraud, and to doing so collectively. This is truly a shared problem with shared solutions. And the only thing that is going to work to defeat it is an ecosystem approach, bringing companies, governments, academia, and civil society together. The one thing that we are sure of is that the road ahead is going to be challenging. The landscape of online threats is constantly evolving, and we have to be adaptable and we have to innovate to stay ahead of those who would seek to do harm. We can harness technology itself, in particular the remarkable powers of artificial intelligence, to help people around the world navigate the online world safely while combating those threats. This is a shared challenge, and we want to lean in. Here in Jakarta, I am filled with optimism, actually, inspired by the collaborative spirit that I see embodied by Gotong Royong. Together, that I am confident that we can create that more safe, more trustworthy internet for us all. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Terima kasih Bapak. Thank you so much Mr. Karan for the insightful keynote speech. It is now my distinct pleasure to welcome Ibu Ida Rumondang H. Sipahutar, Head of Researchers Group OJK Institute, to deliver her keynote speech. Please welcome.
Excellencies and distinguished guests, Ibu Mira Tayyiba. We meet again, Bu Mira. I was in KSP at the time when I met you. The Secretary General, congratulations to you. I don't know, you get the promotion there. Mr. Karan Bhatia, VP Global Affairs Google. Mr. Yose Rizal Damuri, Executive Director CSIS Indonesia. Our distinguished speakers and moderators, all participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, shalom, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. From the outset, I would like to thank our colleagues from CSIS and to Safer Internet Lab for inviting OJK to talk a bit on today's dialogue. First of all, allow me to speak here as OJK person, and the topic is a little bit different from you asked in the invitation. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that topic. On general level, the promotion of research is essential and in many respects pivotal for the overall development of our societies. The lack of research capacity has, in many ways, held back developing countries that, a consequence, have generally followed innovation in products and concepts and ideas from the most advanced economies. And as a result, we have not been at the leading edge of the technology, nor generating ideas to contribute to molding a future of our generation. The commitment to developing research and innovation is not only essential to addressing the technology information advancement, but it is also essential tool to delivering long-term economic and social prosperity, without which will not be able effectively address the usage of technology as a game changer towards Indonesia March 2045 and meet the United Nations Development Goals 2030. Even though not only one about the industry innovation, but I believe most all of the aspects for the UN Development Goals 2030 will affected by technology of information. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember how big is our country, how many islands we have. Here, I was in Labengki, small island in the Sulawesi Tenggara last 2 weeks, and I was amazed. Thank you for Telkomsel building such big tower in a really remote area. So I can communicate with my colleagues in Jakarta doing our works in our holiday. Still, we can manage our job here. All area in Indonesia has to be covered by good signal and high quality of telecommunication network. I remember about 5 years ago, before COVID, I think how many percent it's coverage of telecommunications. So we came to many places to ask for building telecommunication tower like this, or maybe Wi-Fi, and thankfully, Bakti, Kemenko Perekonomian, Kemenkominfo, Kemenq support our wish to have the good telecommunication network cover all of Indonesia. In order to allow all financial transactions that need internet as enabler, such as ATM, I put here the ATM. Here, the ATM. Have you ever seen the ATM of BRI has VSAT on the top of the ATM? Maybe not in Jakarta, but in remote area, we need really internet through VSAT for doing the ATM. There is a new terminology I have learned from the Anita Wahid report that in Bank's Eyes in the Sky. According to her, data and intelligence satellite profile are being leveraged on a wider scale within financial services in areas such as financial inclusion and climate risk. Indonesia is a highly connected country with roughly 171 million internet users, and is becoming increasingly mobile, with the world's 4th largest number of mobile cellular subscriptions. We are a big country. The market of online and mobile media is rapidly catching up the television, the one that we used before. So the high penetration of social media platforms with 130 million Facebook users, the world's 3rd largest audience, and 11th Twitter million users, the 9th largest in the world. It's in April 2020. So you can imagine how much now, because Indonesia is growing rapidly with the internet system. We also want to see the FG survey in the first quarter of 2024. The internet penetration rate in Indonesia stood 79.5%. It's already big now, not only 50% before. The technology innovations have taken place in virtually every field of business, including financial service. Based on survey by Indonesian service provider, internet service provider, ABG, 68.7% of internet users in Indonesia felt it was safe to perform transactions over the internet, and only 5.3% feeling it was unsafe. But still 5%, we have to combat this shortage. From ABG survey, we understand that it's important for us to have inclusive, safe, and sustainable internet safer. According to data published by Bank Indonesia, digital transformation in bank sector has witnessed significant progress. This is evident in the substantial growth in money. We were talking about increase before. It's already 66%. And digital banking transactions in 2033. In contrast, ATM, debit card, credit card, all are only 0.7 increase in 2023, even declining compared to growth in 2022. Moreover, SMS and mobile banking transaction volume and value have shown significant growth from 2008 to November 23. So during COVID, we have so high or very fast in the increasing level of mobile banking usage. maybe because with mobile banking, we can access the bank system anytime, anywhere. And maybe not anytime, anywhere, but there are also a lot of transactions that's rather than only transfer. Latest innovation in financial service digital transformation refer to embedded finance here. We already have the webinar about embedded finance, maybe in April or March. With embedded finance, there is, how can I say, collaboration between the e-commerce platform and the banking platform. So you now can buy the non-financial product through the m-banking. Have you ever see the Livin? Have you ever used Livin for buying products from Sarinah? Through your m-banking. And you can also buy investment through the e-commerce platform. So if we previously talked the importance of good and safe signal or telecommunication network only for allowing financial transaction, now we see that non-financial transaction need them too. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the question that CSIS asked us. What role should Indonesia play in global efforts against information and support the existing international initiatives? We learned there are 4 things that Indonesia can do to combat disinformation. First, the leading international cooperation, and thank for the Kemenkominfo that's already issued the guidelines through the ASEAN. I heard that from Bu Mira just now. Congratulations, 2024 we have the ASEAN guidelines for combating the fake news and disinformation. The second is supporting fact-checking initiatives. Thank you, Mr. Varan, for your video, really interesting. I just heard from my friends that Indonesia has fact-checking organizations, Mafindo. I would like maybe next time I would like to see Mafindo, the Indonesian Anti-Slander Society. This is interesting because the UN Countering Disinformation Report in 2022 proposed to involve civil society in design, policies, and other efforts aimed at countering disinformation. So we, Indonesia, align with the UN reports of disinformation. In the scope of financial service sector, OJK is also making an information system. We are going to have database on people who related to fraud. We call it RP OJK si pelaku. So it's not issued yet, but we are doing on it. And then, as always, OJK always talk about literacy, but now it's enhancing digital literacy. The goal of enhancing digital literacy is to endorse the positive usage of the internet. Kemenkominfo has a national digital literacy program. Maybe it's popular with the cyber kreasi, creative cyber movement. This is good, and cyber kreasi has the vision of being an Indonesian society that is empowered and capable of digital literacy as a pillar of sustainable development. So this is really good. We can say that Indonesia can be a digitally sovereign global society. In OJK, within our financial literacy program, as usually, we are trying to do the financial literacy program, but not only financial literacy program, but also we, OJK, with the financial service companies, provide the understanding of digital financial products and services, as well as tips and tricks for mitigating risk associated with the technology. And the last one is the roles of financial service sector in countering disinformation. Because our area is financial service, so we ask the financial service companies to, how can I say, to strengthen their IT, to save their system, so all of the transaction, all of the information given are true and the facts are real. Maybe you can see in the website of OJK, there are a lot of regulation for banking at the left side, and then for BPR and BPS, and for non-bank financial institution, and for capital market, and for the education and protection. We see that the one that we always renew is about the customers protection. The first is in 2013, and then the second in 2022, and now in 23 we have the new one about customers protection, because this is really important. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I raise all of the issues here, the urgency of internet safety to export in development of financial service, because ultimately economic growth underpin Indonesia's social stability. This is important. And the internet safety is very important for meeting the benefit of having financial sector existence in the digital economy. I have expressed a few ideas before. I hope this forum provides the opportunity to learn, especially for people who related to the result of policy research done by the Safer Internet Lab. For the better future of Indonesia, we call upon all stakeholders of internet safety to collaborate and embrace the commitment on combating misinformation in Indonesia. Thank you for all of us here in this room, and I look forward for productive and engaging discussion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ibu, please kindly remain on the stage for taking group photo together. And we would like to invite the following distinguished guests to join us on the stage. Ibu Mira Tayyiba, please join us on the stage. Bapak Yose Rizal Damuri, Mr. Karan Bhatia, please join on the stage. And we would like to invite Ibu Putri Alam, Mr. Andrew Ure, Mr. Jean Jacqua, Ibu Medelina Henditio, and Bapak Philips C. Vermonte. Please all distinguished guests on the stage. We are going to take a group photo together. Yes, and the photographer, please stand by. Yes, and please take your position, the media and the photographer. Okay, we're going to take a picture twice, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to invite the Director Yuan, Mr. Gaspar. Please join on the stage. And Mr. Jonathan, please join us on the stage for taking a group photo together. Yes, and photographer, please take your position. The media. Okay, so we're going to take the picture twice. Okay, please take your position. Yes. Okay, so the first one, the formal pose. Okay, please go a bit to the right. Yes, go a bit to the right, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, 1, 2, 3, the formal pose. Okay, second one, please the free pose as you like. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, please remain on the stage. One more time. Okay, one more time. Please take a look to the center of the camera behind. 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, please give a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the participation, ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished guests. You may return to your seat. Thank you so much. Okay, wow, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard keynote speech and opening remarks. And now, the next session of the day is SEAL presentation on research paper findings. So to discover safer Internet Lab's research paper findings on disinformation across actors, users, and platforms, without any further ado, may I please welcome Associate Researcher, Safer Internet Lab, Bapak Rifqi Rachman. Please welcome to give the first presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Please, the slide, please. Okay. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Rifqi Rachman. I'm an associate researcher from Safer Internet Lab, here to present you with our recent findings on the influence operations implementation at the 2024 Indonesia's election. So, to smoothen you with the presentation, I will provide you with the definition of influence operations. It is a coordinated effort to manipulate people's behavior to achieve desired outcomes. So all influence operations strategies are anchored in obtaining electoral support through narrative creation. The narrative creation has several objectives. The first one is to promote the candidate, and the second one is to frame the opponent's images, and the third one is to weaken voters' objectivity and capability to decide or to vote. Our studies suggest that the success of this strategy at Indonesia's previous election has made influence operations re-emerge with broader actors' involvement and new deployment options. And therefore, this study aimed to anticipate and discourage the implementation of influence operations while simultaneously growing voters' resilience. After a series of interviews with influence operations actors, we found this strategy adapts to current social media trends and user information behavior. We have conducted dozens of interviews with actors from political parties as well as the campaign teams, and found that they did develop their strategies around this notion. To assist us in identifying how influence operations are implemented, we created 4 teams and derived all the teams into characteristics of influence operations. From the categorization, flexibility and creativity emerge as 2 key points that representing how this strategy is employed. Those 2 points apply to the current recruitment process, narrative production and dissemination, as well as the incentive mechanism. For instance, by highlighting the affiliation characteristic of influence operations, we can easily detect the actors' flexibility in executing their influence strategy. Since these actors can play their role almost from everywhere, nothing can hinder their participation in our recent election. Meanwhile, the manipulation techniques manifest by capitalizing on the technical gaps. They can massively circulate a narrative by cloning the same social media application hundreds of times within a single device. These 2 examples and other findings from our study signify how flexible and creative the implementation of influence operations can be. Therefore, this adaptive operation can take advantage of the existing policymaking and socio-technical gaps. However, we have also discovered that actors in influence operations extend beyond those seeking electoral support. This tactic also dragged non-political actors responsible for organizing Indonesia's election, the electoral management bodies. Influence operations not only exploit socio-technical and regulatory gaps in the electoral system, but also pull independent entities into their playing field, whether directly or indirectly. We then understand that influence operations are multifaceted problems. It is a policy formulation problem, also a policy enforcing problem, as well as technological design problem. This strategy challenges electoral management bodies and demands robust regulations to counteract its foreseen and seen implications. In the electoral sector, influence operations are developed rapidly, leaving behind the policy's readiness to regulate such operations. Therefore, SAIL tried to address this issue by promoting a co-governance approach, which could address the issue of influence operations holistically and collectively. And to explore the co-governance approach further, I will hand this presentation over to my colleague, Sherly Haristya, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. And for the next presentation, we invite Ibu Sherly Haristya, Associate Researcher, Safer Internet Lab.
The slide, please. Okay. As the spread of disinformation has been one of the most pressing societal challenges we are facing these days, there are various regulatory updates, platform initiatives, and civic efforts in Indonesia. Despite those various initiatives, an urgent question remains. Why do overlaps and misalignments in countering disinformation persist? This is the key research question that we in the Governance Working Group analyzed since April 2023. And today, I would like to present the findings on behalf of my esteemed colleagues at the Governance Working Group. And after that, I will provide an explanation to the second research question, that is, how can we establish effective and equitable multi-stakeholder coordination in Indonesia to counter disinformation that complements existing initiatives while minimizing the burden on the current mechanisms. But first of all, who should be responsible for online content? Amid the proliferation of hoaxes that societies are facing on the ground, there is an emerging need for the responsibility of online content to be carried by not only the government, but also tech platforms and individuals. So this is the result of SAIL National Survey on Misinformation conducted back on September 2023, in which SAIL surveyed 1,320 respondents across Indonesia. In other words, there is a public appetite for a collaborative governance to counter information disorder. So, if the public shows interest and need for collaborative governance in countering information disorder, how is the current state of such co-governance at the global level? Governments, here, are the well-known actors with legitimacy and mandate to exercise their regulatory speech function through laws and regulations. Meanwhile, tech platforms, they are also taking a more central role in regulating speech through their community standards and technicalities. Moreover, civil society, including civil society organizations, social media users, and wider public, are also upholding their local norms and best practices in speech regulation and governance. These three stakeholder groups are coordinating and cooperating among themselves, as shown in this example. However, there is, again, an overlap of regulations, norms, and mechanisms in the co-governance of online content at the global level. And with such overlapping, those initiatives come with varying level of success. By taking the lessons learned from the co-governance initiatives globally, the question for Indonesian stakeholders is, what do we need to do? Our research found that Indonesian stakeholders need to go beyond performative governance, but to push through for participatory co-governance. In the critical situation with regulatory deficit, there is no more time for stakeholder groups to continue pressuring one another with their content regulatory approaches and goals. Instead, Indonesian stakeholder groups need to willingly cooperate, as shown in the ongoing joint initiatives mentioned earlier, such as fact-checking projects, media literacy campaigns, and trusted fragile programs. However, Indonesia should aim for more sustainable, holistic, and participatory co-governance so that various stakeholder groups can regularly, inclusively, and meaningfully deliberate to reflect together and develop online content-related principles, guidelines, policies, and practices. So in sum, these are some recommendations for the future of online content governance in Indonesia. First, codify. Multi-stakeholders in Indonesia need to agree on the set of national level principles that underpins the more practical level cooperations, such as responsibility and accountability, transparency, user empowerment, and/or balancing rights. Commonly agreed principles enable policy-driven decisions instead of discretion-based. Indonesia can refer to international best practices, such as EU Strengthened Code of Practice on Information 2022, or Australia Code of Practice on Dis or Misinformation 2021. Second, converge. Each stakeholder groups needs to strengthen their commitment and their internal processes before Indonesia can have a more formal and institutionalized space and means of content governance. That way, first, government's regulatory capability to formalize open consultancy mechanism to integrate inputs from civil society and tech platforms. Second, tech platforms to decentralize decision and tailor practices to regional and national leadership level. And third, civil society groups to increase their internal and external legitimacy. Only after the above steps are fulfilled, Indonesian stakeholders can revisit and reactivate the form and spirit of National Multi-Stakeholder Discussion Group on digital governance issues, such as the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group on Indonesia Internet Governance Forum, or known as MEC of IDIGF. Third, to collaborate. Those stakeholder groups, they can collaborate through three-way transparency and trust-building measures, such as through an integrated disinformation dashboard, content takedown request fulfillment statistics, and adaptive appeal mechanisms. The commitment of state and non-state groups in Indonesia to have a space and dialogue to carry out digital responsibilities hopefully will shine a light in the complexities of online content and social media regulation and governance worldwide. With that, I thank you for your attention, and I would like to give the floor to our next presenter, Noory Okthariza.
Thank you so much, Ibu Sherly Haristya. And for the last presentation, please welcome to the stage Bapak Noory Okthariza, researcher CSIS Indonesia.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Aside from asking policymakers and actors responsible for information disorder, one of the best ways to understand the impact of misinformation is by asking ordinary people how this issue can affect their beliefs, their attitudes and behavior, especially during election time. This is because elections have been known as a fertile ground for the so-called political buzzers or cyber troopers to produce misleading content, at least if you're talking about Indonesian case. So that's why before the 2024 elections, we conducted a nationwide survey focused on the issue of information disorder. We primarily asked two questions, and this is going to be the key points in my presentations. So the first one, we asked how vulnerable Indonesians actually are to misinformation. This is an important question because if you want to understand the impact of disinformation, I think it is instructive to know beforehand how susceptible people actually are to this issue. As we know, some people might be more vulnerable, while others might be more resilient when it comes to issues like hoax, fake news, false information, and so forth. Then you want to understand the second question, which is the impact of this vulnerability on people's attitude towards elections and also democracy in general. You may wonder, will those who believe in misinformation be more likely to, for example, to reject the election results, be more likely to claim the election is rigged and unfair, and be more likely to have a lower trust and support for democracy? And we will delve into these questions later on. So let's start with the first question, which is the vulnerability to information disorder. So the first vulnerability that we found is that only 23.6% of people say they often verify provocative information by themselves. In contrast, we found that more than 75% admit they either rarely check or never check credible information at all. And our survey also shows that Google, unsurprisingly, has become a go-to source for verifying information, followed by asking friends and using WhatsApp groups. This is the second vulnerability. So we found that despite growing efforts from fact-checking communities to contain the spread of these issues these days, we found that the outreach of these fact-checking communities, unfortunately, is still very, very limited. We found that more than 80% of respondents never verify false information through fact-checking groups, nor have they ever heard about such initiative. And among small share of those who do verify information, more than 70% don't share it, meaning that the verified information is largely kept to themselves. And the third point, which is even more concerning, is that we found that most people in Indonesia don't realize that information disorder is actually a byproduct of an organized and orchestrated movement. So when the public reads false information on social media, most believe it is merely the words of pranksters or individuals seeking sensations and controversy. So public might recognize that the information itself is controversial, but they don't necessarily know its career and how it came about on social media in the first place. Lastly, it is perhaps safe to say that on the left side, the information literacy program are not yet actually well established in Indonesia, because we found that almost 97% of our respondents have never engaged in various fact-checking activities, be it in the forms of training, in seminar, or workshops. So of course, this should be a point of concern for many of us who work in this issue related to information literacy. Now, the next question is, what are the impact of this vulnerability that I just mentioned, particularly with regard to the elections, the most recent elections in 2024, and also democracy in general? So the first impact is that having higher belief in information disorder has a perceptible influence on the level of trust in elections management bodies such as KPU and Bawaslu. And to prove this claim, our research, we did a simple statistical analysis by controlling for socio-demographic aspects of our respondents, such as their age, their gender, their occupations, their expenditure, and so on, and here's what we got. So we found those who believe in this information, they tend to have a lower trust in election management body, which is KPU on the left side. And the same is true for Bawaslu, our supervisory board of elections in Indonesia. So trust in Bawaslu is lower among those with higher belief in this information compared to those who don't believe. And this is the second impact. So we run the same analysis for this one, and the results show that those who have belief in information disorder, they tend to have a higher probability of saying the election is rigged, it's unfair, it has many problems, and so forth. So in short, they tend to have a lower trust, and they question the integrity of election more so than those who believe in information disorder. Lastly, this is the third impact. We also found that those who believe with a stronger belief in disinformation, they tend to have a lower level of support for democracy as opposed to those with a weaker belief in disinformation. So to conclude, our survey shows that vulnerability to disinformation matters. So people's vulnerability to information disorder are associated with a number of concerning issues. They tend to question election integrity more. They tend to have lower trust in election management body, and also they tend to have a lower support in the practice of democracy in general in Indonesia. The very last slide, as an effort to disseminate this issue to broader audience, the full length of our research will be available in upcoming book, soon to be published by one of the largest publishers in Indonesia, which is Kompas Gramedia. So it will be available very soon in bookstores and also online versions for wider accessibility. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bapak Noory Okthariza, researcher CSIS Indonesia. Thank you so much for the presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, we have heard some amazing presentations, and the presenters have provided us so many informations, insight that we hope it will be beneficial to each and every one of us. Before we continue, I would like to remind our audience that you can access all the papers discussed in this panel by simply scanning the QR code on the back of your name tag. Just kindly check your name tag, just scanning the QR code, and you can access all the papers discussed in this panel. Now let's commence our upcoming panel discussion. The topic is looking forward, exchanging ideas on the next steps to combat disinformation in Southeast Asia. And ladies and gentlemen, there will be Q&A session at the end of the session. Please raise your hand and the moderator will invite you to ask your question. Just kindly ensure your questions are concise and straightforward. And also provide your name, affiliation, and specify the speaker you are addressing. So without any further ado, let's prepare ourselves to sail dialogue on internet safety. So please welcome. Please welcome our moderator, Bapak Philips J. Vermonte, Senior Fellow, CSIS Indonesia. And please join me in welcoming Bapak Jonathan Tan Ghee Tiong, Head Culture and Information Division, Sustainable Development Directorate, ASEAN Secretariat. And please join me in welcoming Bapak Yoga Sangkan Prasetya, Coordinator for Economic Cooperation, Center of International Affairs, Ministry of Communications and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia. And we would like to invite Bapak Jean-Jacques Wang, Asia Pacific Information Policy Lead and Global Telecommunications Policy Lead Google. Please join us on the stage. And we also would like to invite Bapak Miklos Gaspar, Director UN Information Center. Please give a big round of applause. We would like to invite Ibu Anita Wahid, Advisor of Public Virtue Institute. And last but not least, we would like to invite Bapak Prasetya Dwi Cahya, COO Think Policy and Co-Head Bijak Demokrasi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to proceed the panel discussion. So to the Bapak Philips, our moderator, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Very good afternoon, everyone. Philip Vermonte is my name, and I got the honor to chair this panel discussion. So the purpose of this panel is to deepen and then to get some views coming out from our speakers today, to extend our understanding of what have been presented by SAIL research team, as well as from our keynote speakers earlier this morning. And later on, I will invite a discussant, Bang Andy Bayoni from the floor, to comment on all of these ideas coming out of this session. And I think we have a set of speakers that represent those who are working at the global level, from the UN office, from ASEAN, regional level, and then the Indonesian government and the civil society, as well as the private sectors. And then if we think linearly, we would think that we need to ask down from the global, coming from the top, that is at the global level, to down to the national level, or vice versa. But I received the order from the terms of reference that is, kind of a mixing up. Started with our speaker, Pak Jonathan Tanjiyong of the ASEAN Secretariat first, so I will not change the order that I'm receiving from the terms of reference, but then we will discuss the matter simultaneously. Now, Pak Jonathan, and before I start, I apologize to all speakers that we have limited time. We only have about 1 hour with 6 speakers and 1 discussant. So, I'll ask you to solve this global problem of disinformation in 5 minutes each to respond to my question. Now, Pak Jonathan, we've been talking about this regional level approach to combat misinformation and disinformation. And we learned this morning as well, and you are fully aware of this, that ASEAN now has the guideline on management of government information and combating fake news and disinformation in the media. Now, in your view, how would our regional organization, as well as our region, to do more in attacking this problem?
So, a very good morning, and thank you very much, Phillips, for that question there. I will try to keep myself brief here. But first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank CSIS and Google for extending an invitation to the ASEAN Secretariat to attend this dialogue. I think to the question about what we can do at the regional level, I would like to just highlight very briefly here that the efforts to fight disinformation has been sustained over the last, I would say, almost 7 years, since 2017, when we have had the ministerial roundtable discussing fake news in the Philippines. And even last year itself, in September, when the guideline, as Philip has mentioned earlier, was adopted by the ASEAN ministers responsible for information, we also, the ministers themselves, when we had that discussion in September last year in Da Nang, Vietnam, they discussed at length on the concerns and the aggravating situations about disinformation and misinformation. And that discussion itself also led to an outcome document called the Vision Statement for 2030, where it underlines, I think, 3 key components. First, it's that there is a need for us to inculcate a greater culture of critical thinking amongst the netizens. And second, it's really to optimize the use of technology and its tools to capacitate the media as a trusted channels to deliver information in a most accurate and timely manner. And last but not least, also emphasizing on the targeted as well as evidence-based approaches that we need to take, especially in terms of driving strategic and public communications. And with that, I would also like to share with you that 2 years ago, ASEAN actually formed a task force on fake news. We call them the ASEAN Task Force on Fake News, TFFN for short. And this fake news task force was actually made up of a tripartite representations of the government officials, fact-checkers, and representatives from the media sector. I would like to see, as we further, engage different stakeholders, that we would like to also open up to create regular interfaces with other important stakeholders like the CSOs and of course with the think tanks and researchers as well. And therefore, I do think that this Safer Internet Lab initiative is indeed very significant because I think it underlines the importance of multi-stakeholder conversations on fighting fake news, for one, and of course that it also illustrates that governments themselves cannot work in silo to address this issue about fighting fake news, given that the pace, the volume, the reach, and the efficacy of fake news as a result of generative AI has been in such a has led us to such a situation whereby I don't think that any single party is able to manage and mitigate, the effects of fake news by themselves, and therefore it calls for a more coordinated, multi-stakeholder approach. And I would also like to add that it's also very important that if you look at the World Economic Forum report that was put out this year, where misinformation and disinformation was actually identified as the most severe threat in the next 2 years and will remain so for the next 10 years, I think this really resonates with many of us who work in this space, that there is really a need for us to continue to foster a greater multi-stakeholder conversations in this regard. Yeah. So I think I will just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jonathan. That was Pak Jonathan Tanji Siong. He's the head of the Culture and Information Division, Sustainable Development Directorate at the ASEAN Secretariat. Thank you, Pak Jonathan, for highlighting some aspects that happening at the regional level, which I think Indonesia, then I'll go to Pak Yoga Sangkan Prasetya, Coordinator for Economic Cooperation, Center for International Affairs, our Ministry of Communication and Informatics of the Republic of Indonesia. Now, speaking about the regional level, and we know earlier, Pak Karan from Google highlighting the leadership role of Indonesia, that the international community, at least at the regional level, expects Indonesia, given the size of the population and so on. And Ibu Ida earlier also cited the fact that we have about 79% of internet penetration. So given all these reasons, Indonesia become very important in implementing the guidelines. Now, if I may ask, are we investing on implementing all these efforts to combat and to tackle the problem of misinformation and disinformation? Are there any buy-ins in our government? It's not the sole responsibility of your ministry. It has to be a multi-stakeholders approach and so on. So if you could highlight, if you could enlighten us on what the Indonesian government, can do and can do more.
Thank you, and very good morning for everybody over here. So, and then also thank you for SAIL and also CSIS and also Google for giving me the chance to speak this morning. So it's a good thing for become me because what? Because these guidelines has already introduced by the Secretary General, Bu Ida, you, Pak Phillips, and also Mr. Jonathan. So this is me here to be complementing the what is the ASEAN guideline. So for your information is that you can just download because it is public, and then you can just see all the details of these guidelines. Okay, so let me start with the reason behind why Indonesia, at that time in 2023 as the chairpersonships of the ASEAN, initiates this guideline. So we see that the misinformation, disinformation, fake news, negative contents is crucial to be tackled. This is like something that important and this is necessary for us to be aware of. Because what? Because this issue is not only for not making any productivity, but also counterproductive. So that means that people and then this content, rather than this connectivity, also impacts to the productivity itself, as we see that the connectivity is not only relying on the infrastructure, but also the person itself. So that's why making a good content, making a positive content is really beneficial. However, in the context of the regionalism in Asia, the standards of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news is different. So if you compare this country to another country, they have like a set of different mechanism, bureaucracy, mitigations and everything. So that is why, that's the reason why we need to set with one documents that can be a guidelines. So actually this is not a binding, but every country can look at this and then they can transfer it and then they can adapt it to their each of their regulations, and then they can follow the instructions. Because what? Because these guidelines is really complete. So it started from how to identify how to combating the fake news, and also how to make the counter attacks to counter the negative content itself. And the other one, they can have like the recommendations for every country. So that is why these guidelines also opens for another initiatives by another ASEAN countries, which is Malaysia. Malaysia by this year, correct me if I'm wrong, Pak Jonathan, Malaysia this year also taking relay of the guidelines by trying to introduce the guidelines for the social media usage in ASEAN. And then this project should be ended by 2025, should be finalized by 2025, and producing another one. So what we see over here that this is sets of relaying objectives and then relaying stakeholders that we want to initiate. The ASEAN guideline itself is started by the government. So the subject of these guidelines is for the government. So what we see over here that because what? Because government that has the regulatory, that they have like the policy making, and also they just control this contents over the media. So that's why we see that this is the very first thing that we need to manage. After that, the next one is the society itself. So this is like the second series of these guidelines by the Malaysia. And then what's the next impact for Indonesia itself? Of course, that these guidelines implements and also complements the current policies, which is Indonesia, the digital literacy from the Kominfo, and also for the digital talent scholarship and also digital leadership academies. That's the pyramids of the digital literacy in Indonesia. It's also complement to that. And then for the other one is that Indonesia has also benefits as the implementing countries for this, is that there are several of the seminars. The first seminar is in the March 2024, and then the second one is in the October 2024. So this seminar is also open for public, and then every stakeholders that involved in this guidelines can also join with that. This is the one that we can give you the information for now, Pak Philips, and then, okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Yoga. Now, I'm going to our next speaker, Jean-Jacques from Google, and then I've been a firm believer that tech companies really has a very significant role to play, because all of this come through the platform of this technology. And of course, there are governments and civil society and so on, but it's happening in the platform. And then now with AI and then all this new development, how would you provide some perspective on this? How Google, of course, we've heard for Pak Karan earlier, but it is time to deepen Google perspective on this. How are we going to tackle this use and abuse of internet and now with AI in combating misinformation and disinformation?
Thank you. We've got limited time. I could speak for many hours about this, but I'll try to keep it short. I think as Karan was alluding, we're looking at this through broadly 3 pillars on how to fight misinformation. The first one is the one that everybody thinks about, I guess, which is about countering disinformation in particular, the intentional sharing of false information, right? Taking it down. Then you've got delivering credible reliable information, and that's key. You can't just take things down. You have to also have good, real stuff out there. And then the final thing is that we need to partner to get maximum effect. So let me dig a little bit deeper into each of those three. In terms of countering, of course, it's a mix of technical solutions and people, processes, reviewing flags, for instance, from users, or removals for requests from governments that inform us when we're seeing harmful content on our platform, or illegal content in the case of government removal requests. And the technology is an interesting one because obviously it never stops, but we were seeing AI, and it's true that AI presents risks, but in this field it's also quite inspiring. It's got a lot of potential to help us to fight attackers much more effectively. What we're seeing and what we're starting to use, you heard the numbers, for instance, for the number of ads that we removed last year, over 200 million. Actually, that's a vast improvement and increase compared to the previous year, and that's because we've started using LLMs much more, so AI tools. We've been using machine learning for a long, long time to help us to sort of moderate, to analyze content at scale and identify bad content at scale, because we receive literally hundreds of thousands of requests every day to review bad content. But now really AI is maximizing our power to detect bad stuff. But not just that, it's also that once we analyze it, once we're identifying bad content, we're also able to come up much faster with a response or a set of responses. So, and we're just at the beginning of this, and it's useful for mis and disinformation, but also more broadly for how we look at cyber safety and cyber security. So we're quite excited about the potential of AI to help us in these challenges. And maybe if I move on to the second one, which I think a lot of people, when they think about illegal content and misinformation, forget, which is it shouldn't be about taking content down. That's a very blunt tool in many ways. You can, especially if you think about mis and disinformation, there's always the risk that you take content down that's actually real. That you do need good information out there. You don't want to breach people's freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, etc. And perhaps overall, more importantly, you will only win this fight against bad actors who are spreading disinformation if there is good, reliable, authoritative information out there. And that's why we try to do this on our own products by trying to provide more context to users. So for instance, when you go on YouTube, you do a search for a particular video, you'll get a number of results. Depending on the type of topic, you might get specific suggestions from more reputed organizations like the BBC, organizations that have been set up for a while, or the UN in some cases. For instance, if we think about COVID, for instance, we had the World Health Organization. We could point people to that when they were making searches on Google Search or on YouTube for sources of information. We do need those authoritative sources out there. We do need to motivate the creation of good sources, and that's why you heard earlier about the Google News Initiative and training journalists. We are training them, for things like being better able to analyze information and to do fact-checking themselves. But importantly, what a big part of the Google News Initiative is to train journalists to be much more digitally savvy, so that they know how to maximize their use of digital tools, they know how to rank their articles higher on Google Search, and so we can have those quality, traditional, authentic media represented properly on the internet and giving users much more context, being able to apply critical thinking. So I'm trying to rush through, and I'll be happy to come back in Q&A. And then perhaps just finishing with perhaps the most important one, because it's underpinning it all, which is partnering, right? And you're right, we're thinking about online misinformation and disinformation, but it's part of a broader spectrum, right? I mean, propaganda has been there since pretty much the first time that humans started living in society, right? So we've been living with this for thousands of years. Now we've got the situation has morphed, taken advantage of new technologies, which is what bad actors have been doing forever, taking advantage of new technologies. So we need to comprehend that. We need to come together. And so there's various strands with it, partnerships. The one that we've mentioned already, that is quite obvious, I think, to all of us, is awareness raising. So we do a bit of awareness raising ourselves. Karen was talking about the campaigns that we've run on, like the heat pause on YouTube, for instance. But in order to get to so many more communities on the ground, we need to partner with local organizations. That's what we've done really well here in Indonesia, both to sort of educate users, educators, so they can train students themselves, but also, again, a bit like we've done with journalists, we've helped some communities to understand better how they can use the digital tools and tell their own stories so that you kind of counter the false narratives with real stuff. So that's on the kind of awareness raising front, and with the, we've got many partnerships already. We're very glad with that, including with the ASEAN Foundation. We've done an APAC-wide, ASEAN-wide program, and that's continuing on online safety and misinformation. And we'd love to do more. We need to do more, including on sort of emerging or rapidly increasing threats like scams and fraud, which has just skyrocketed since COVID. We really do need to make a dent, and user awareness is going to be a major pillar, right? It's not going to solve everything, but it will be, it's a major foundation that we need to get. Research is the other one. Again, we really do need to understand what's happening. I've been very impressed by the work that Belsazar and others at SAIL have been doing over the past year, really trying to understand both how users are impacted and then trying to really sort of unpick how the bad actors are working, because the best way we understand how they're working, the best we'll find the right inflection points for us to counter the problems. And same thing with the related problems of scams and misinformation, and I'm really glad that SAIL is starting this new research work stream that's going to look at deepfake and scams, so we can really understand how the bad actors are working technically and also in terms of spreading their bad messages, and we can, again, find the right ways together to make a dent in it. I think that's probably, I'll just finish off with just a general thing about dialogue and multi-stakeholder dialogue. I think it's well accepted that we need to have a multi-stakeholder dialogue, but I think it's probably not mainstreamed in reality. We need to make it happen much more. So there's a bit with ASEAN. I think we can do more, maybe use ASEAN even more as a platform. I think what we see with Check Factor and similar initiatives in other countries is that the fact-checking organizations, when they're well set up, can themselves become a platform to gather, industries, various government agencies and others. So there's this ongoing dialogue, understanding, and then coming together in practical initiatives. So I think there's room to do far, far more there. I'm really excited about that. And events like this can help us to spur that even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. That was Jean-Jacques, Asia Pacific Information Policy Lead and Global Telecommunication Policy Lead at Google. Now, I'm going to Pak Miklos from he's the Director of UN Information Center here. In terms of setting up global norms and combating this global problem of misinformation and disinformation, could you update us on where are we right now? Are we nearing to achieving some sort of global norms? And if yes, then what can we do? If not, why and what can we do? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Pa Philips, and good. I'm not sure if it's morning or afternoon at this point. I prepared some slides, but in the interest of time, you'll find those with all the materials of this event. I just want to run through a few points quickly. So we've heard this morning many terms: misinformation, disinformation, fake news, hoax, which is a term in Indonesia is used often. For the UN, there are really three terms, and John already alluded to the key difference. Misinformation is false information that's spread by mistake because somebody doesn't know better. So it's not good, but okay, well, mistakes happen. Disinformation is incorrect information that's spread on purpose to cause harm. And then there's hate speech. And hate speech is where really the point is to cause harm, and that's when it is the most important that action is taken. We've also heard from some of the speakers this morning, and also now on the panel, that in ASEAN, just 10 countries, they all have different approaches to this. So imagine the UN with 193 countries. So no, Philips, there are not going to be global norms. Why? Because you know how long it takes, how many years it takes to negotiate a binding international treaty, right? Perhaps some of you have followed the news. Just the World Health Organization has been trying to put forward a treaty in the wake of COVID, and even that, at least so far, has not been possible. So Here, the UN has decided not to do a treaty, but instead put forward what we call global principles on information integrity. These are best practices that we hope many governments and then also platforms and media organizations will sign up for. And once they've done that, then the rest of us can call them to account in case they don't adhere to these principles. For instance, in case a platform does not do enough to combat hate speech. Or if a government uses policies to regulate online safety in order to actually, cut free speech. So there are several principles in these underlying this approach. And the latest I heard, still being negotiated by governments, but it's going to be launched later in June. So later this month, these global principles will be out, and then they will be part of the Summit of the Future, which is this major conference that the UN is organizing for September, to look at the future, the multilateral system governments or countries want over the longer term. So one key, I just want to highlight one key recommendation from these global principles, because that's for platforms. And so much of what we talked about today was for platforms. And that is transparency to data, so that researchers like CSIS would have access for free to basic data on how information spreads via a particular platform. And that this way, platforms could indeed be a lot easier to call into account when it comes to spread of misinformation, disinformation, and particularly hate speech. Indonesia, so what's in this for Indonesia? First of all, there was a global consultation done at the end of last year on what stakeholders in different countries would like to see in these global principles. And we led that at UN in Indonesia, here for Indonesians, and we had people from Cominfo, academia, including CSIS, the media companies, and also CSOs, and then a lot of that feedback was fed into the preparation of these global principles. Now, for Indonesia, let's say for the government, if it signs up to these principles, it will be useful because it can use it as a basis for any new legislation or decrees that it wants to put forward, to show that these are indeed based on international best practices which want to walk that fine line between combating misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, and at the same time not curtailing freedom of expression and free speech. Another way this can be useful is that most of, in this conference we heard from Google, but all the social media platforms are present in Indonesia, part of our lives. As we heard, 90% of Indonesia's over 200 million internet users use social media. In our humble experience at the UN, many of these platforms have not been very cooperative when it came to combating concrete cases of misinformation and disinformation and hate speech. Frankly, in Indonesia, we got very little feedback. We had to go to the regional and sometimes to the global offices for anything to happen. So once these companies also sign up to these global principles, then again, it's going to be easier to get something done when somebody, a CSO or an activist can prove that certain action taken by some users actually runs counter to not just the global principles, but also to the user roles of the companies themselves. So to sum up, I do hope that this is going to be issued in June. There'll be many, many countries, as well as private actors that will sign up to this, and it's going to be, yet another and really important piece in the puzzle in our toolkit to fight misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Miklos. Now I'm going to Ibu Anita Wahid of the Public Virtue Research Institute. Earlier this morning, Pak Karan Bhatia made a statement that Indonesia's plural society can actually be the source of strength to combat this misinformation and disinformation. And I think it struck me because maybe most of us used to think that because we are so diverse, and then we are very prone to misinformation and disinformation, given the various interests and various views among the society. What's your take on this, fact that the Indonesia, being a plural society, can be used as a model to fight against misinformation and disinformation? I know you have a lot of experience working on this, at the grassroots level, and then it would be nice if you can, share your experience with us here.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Philip. Thank you for having me in SAIL. I am Indonesian, so I'm calling it SAIL, not SAIL. Also, before I answer your question, I just want to apologize because I've been having fever since yesterday, and I hope that none of it will affect this conversation. But actually, your question was actually very different than the one that I was given, so I might as well just throw this out. My notes is out the window. So I would answer that question by saying yes and no. In one point, it is true by what was being said that the diversity in Indonesia, as well in Southeast Asia in this case, is actually a strength. If we know how to use it, if we understand the values behind it, if we understand the foundations of those of the values and norms that actually create that diversity. But if we mishandle that becomes a problem. Because it becomes one of the things that actually can be weaponized for political contestation, ideological contestation, and for weapons of conflicts. In the history of Indonesia, if ever since it hasn't even been called Indonesia, most of the major conflicts in Indonesia was started and or followed by disinformation. And most of them are actually related to the things that we are calling identity issues, which I would say I would like to backtrack a little bit why this identity issue becomes like a very difficult issues in terms of how we handle how we create issues in Indonesia and conflicts as well, is because part of the reason of why these are becoming kind of conflicts, because it becomes something that when we feel that it's threatened, there are so many emotions that come out of us. Who we are as a human being in this region is particularly depend on who we identify with, which ethnic groups are we identifying with, which religion are we identifying ourselves with, which social status or strata that we identify ourselves with. And if we feel that there is some sort of a perceived threats towards that identity, then we feel that we are feeling threatened, we are feeling suspicious of others, we are feeling very worried, we are feeling very, very easily angry, easily accusing other people, which in a very complex situations, it's also very easy for us to do actions of othering to other groups. These actions of othering means that whoever is not included as part of my group is different, therefore they are enemies. And this becomes very susceptible to be weaponized, especially if there had been historically conflicts that's related to this. And in the case of Indonesia, we've seen that quite a lot of conflicts in the beginning, since the beginning of the digital technological development, has been using these issues for weapons. And I think it's not only becoming weapons of ideological contestation or weapons of political contestations, but it's also becoming a way to actually maintain hatred by anyone who feels that they will benefit in the future by playing these issues. So from time to time, even though it's seemingly peaceful at the surface, but below it's very, very vulnerable. Just one splash of misinformation or disinformation about the other groups, it will create like a huge conflict in just seconds. But the way, one of the other problems is also because of the way state handle this issue. Somewhat there is this pressure of having a social harmony that forces the government to actually, not only government, but also the law enforcement to actually handle it by ways of let's just keep the peace so that one of the conflicting groups need to ngalah, what is it, let it go for the benefit of for the benefit of the greater goods, which in fact, in a way, yes, it worked. It will deflate the potential conflict, but at the same time, never actually handle the conflict. In the case of Indonesia, it's usually the minority groups that is being forced to let the stuff go, and they had their rights of living, of practicing their faith, and everything other things threatened. Their human rights are basically not protected at all by the way the state approached this issue of social harmonization. I think so far, let's stop there,
Right.
and maybe we can continue in the discussion.
Thank you, Anita, for highlighting the fact that many times we do not attack the root cause of the problem, and then we need to do more in terms of better handling our diversity, so that what Pak Karan Bhatia stated earlier could come true. And I think it is a strength. Diversity is actually the strength. And I agree with you if we know how to handle this. Right. Now, I'd like to ask Pak Prasetya Dwi Cahya of the Think Policy and of Bijak Democracy. This is a short question but probably requires a long answer, but you only have 5 minutes. How can we mainstream political literacy education? Pak Jonathan earlier highlighted, and then Pak Miklos as well, the role of critical thinking and the role of, I'm not saying self-censorship, but understanding what we are spreading and what we are informing other or fellow citizens. But how can we mainstream this political literacy education to the masses?
Thank you so much, Pak Philip. Such a short questions for quite long answer, I think. And I would like to also share a little bit about our organizations, because the context of this question is also very related to the heart and the visions of our organizations trying to do, right? So Think Policy as an organization believe that we want to achieve what we call as a good public policy ecosystem in Indonesia. So in order for you, for us especially, mostly our Indonesians here, to achieve a good public policy ecosystem, at least there are 2 parts that we have to address. The first part is the supply side. You need a good government, good politicians, good process in developing policies, which actually most of our work as a Think Policy is helping them, trying to train the government, trying to facilitate forum processes that allow more engaging, more deliberative process of policy making, as well as providing advice. But on the other end, there's a demand side. So how we can demand a good public policy if there's no citizens even know what a good public policy is? So imagine you're living in Indonesia where there's no good public transportations. Some of you here maybe is like quite privileged enough, traveling overseas, having a good education, living in a cities that has a functioning public transportations. But that's not the reality for most of Indonesians. And sometimes we need to create that kind of demand that, oh, because I'm working now, I need a good public transportations. I think the government needs to invest more in this public transportation. That allows the government to prioritize which good public policies that needs to be delivered to the citizens. So therefore, Think Policy also created what we call as a bijak movement, or the wise movement. So initially this movement started as a bijak memilih, vote wisely. Then the idea is, maybe it's quite different from what the other speakers talk about. It's not about fighting misinformation or disinformations, but actually picking the right informations for you to make an informed choice. So what we did during the bijak memilih was we created a framework. We call it the 3 steps framework. First one, know what you want. So because we initially targeted young, urban, middle class people, so at least what issues that you really care about. So based on our research and everything, we identified, for examples like the minority rights, environmental issues, workforce, and a couple of other stuffs, right? So after you know what exactly issues that you care about, we move to the which political parties that actually care with your issues. Because now, for example, if we ask many people here, I think the CSIS, I think we use one of the CSIS research as well for the basis of identifying the spectrum, the ideological spectrums, as well as the issues that the political parties care about. So we map those information so people, whenever they try to, oh, maybe I care about environment, so I would like to see which political parties that actually vote for environmentally inclined bill in the parliament. So after that, we created the third step is on the presidential candidates. Which presidential candidates that actually care about your issues based on all the research and all the verified informations that we can get from the internet as well as our partners. So those three steps actually are helping us to create what we call a movement called Vote Wisely or Bijak Memilih. So you need to vote based on what you know, what you care about, so you can make an informed decisions based on the information that is verified as well as can be accountable. So we initially thought that, well, maybe only 5,000 people or 10,000 people will visit these websites because we don't really think that we can fight the huge amount of disinformations or all the gimmicky content that will circulating around in the social media. But we were proven wrong. So we got like around for several months when we start launching all of these features to the public, we got around 11 million visits, 1.5 million unique users actually visiting and using this website to help them to get an informed choice. And you know, like Indonesian culture is SKS, you know, sistem kebut semalam. So the night before the elections, like there's hundreds and thousands of users actually visiting our website to at least find out which presidential candidates or political parties that we should vote. So from this experiment, from these iterations, we decided to, of course, if we want to create a good demand of public policies, we cannot stop at elections, right? So we need to build further on this movement on how people can get engaged in a more informed way in the policy-making process or in the political process. So that's why we created what we call as a bijak democracy, as a consortium-based movement that try to invite all the organizations, profit, non-profit, who cares about democracy and well-informed citizens on how we can promote this type of civic activities for people to get a more informed choice in their political activities. So this bijak democracy consists of 4 sub-initiatives. So we call the first one is Bijak Pilkada. So we try to replicate what we did during the Bijak Memilih to the regional level. So we select around 10 or 20 priority regions, as well as there's some kind of features that allow maybe to get informations in one way or another for the rest. The second part is Bijak Memantau, or to monitor wisely. So once the new government being elected, we want to create a dashboard or website that allows to track what policies they already promised and how they're being delivered so far. So we can have like a complete picture on the government performance on the key policy areas. The third one, we got the Sekolah Bijak, or the wise school. So we try to use our online learning platform so people or like activists or researchers or the citizens who care about the issues to really learn and have a deep dive of the various public policy issues so they can engage more actively. And the fourth one is the Komunitas Bijak. So this is the broader community to work, discuss, and have this kind of movement on a daily basis. So if your question is about how we can mainstream this political literacy, is what we did was through a different means. I think the first one is try to create what we call as a fact-solid website or platform, which the information is can be held accountable, so people can access, criticize, can look at, can refer at whenever they want to do some kind of actions. Initially, we did through this bijak memilih is provide this political candidacy informations, right? But throughout this bijak demokrasi, when we got this bijak memantau and other bijak platform, we want to invite as many as people to really use this platform to get an informed decisions on whatever political activities they want to do. But of course, for the greater goods of the country. I think the first one is that. And the second one is to create an ecosystem of learners and also a strong community who believe in the cause, right? So that's why we move towards a consortium-based movement that allows many different parties to get invited and can collaborate on this platform to use this as a, maybe you can do the offline activations, you can do like seminars, engagement, workshops, and everything as a tool at your disposals to create this kind of literacy, political literacy at a larger scales. And I think the third one is on how we can invest more, of course, in the educational tool, right? Like for example, I told you about the Sekolah Bijak as part of after you get aware, after you get engaged, and then you get to learn on the various policy issues so you can get engaged in these political activities in more meaningful way. And I think I would like to close these notes to, I think we had internal discussions with our brain trusts as well as with our advisors on, because the way that we did and organized is trying to fit into the semangat zaman or the zeitgeist where we are governed by the algorithms, by the FYPs and all of this social media trying to push us off the contents, right? And the way that we try to work on that is through equip people with the skills, equip people with the knowledge, equip people with the community so they can better consume those informations, right? But maybe there's like a new game that we have to think about on how the information should be presented to the people, right? Because this is beyond our control as the one who do the political literacy education program and activism. I think that's the questions that we can ponder upon, especially because we try to deal with the short attention span. We deal with a lot of, for example, FYP and stuff, which I think is very difficult for us. Especially we try to give nuances of the policy issues, and sometimes to engage meaningfully, you have to have a good understanding at a certain level, but it's very hard to achieve it through this algorithm-driven and short attention span kind of environment that we are currently living in. But I think this is something that we can discuss further if any of you try to join the Bijak Demokrasi movement.
Right,
I think that's my question, that's my answer, Pak.
For fascinating work that Think Policy have done. Now we have one discussion, and I'd like to ask Pak Andy Bayuni. He's on the Meta Oversight Board and well-respected senior journalist in Indonesia, previously held position at the Jakarta Post. Could someone provide microphone to Bang Andy Bayuni? Oh, you've got one. Thank you. Like our speaker, you only have 5 minutes to comment on this amazing thought from our speakers on the stage. Pak Andy.
Thank you, Phillips, and thank you for very wonderful presentations. I think everyone gave suggestions on how SAIL can move forward with policies, with research. I just have 2 short comments. One, something that I think Jean-Jacques mentioned briefly, but I thought I'd like to emphasize. It's about the freedom of speech, which has been discussed, but not extensively, but I think it's important when we talk about internet safety and freedom. And the second point I want to make is about the pan-ASEAN collaboration on fighting against disinformation and misinformation. Now, I think freedom of opinion and freedom of expression is very important. When we talk about fighting misinformation and disinformation, we should not also forget that we should protect free speech, right? I can tell you from my experience at the Oversight Board of Meta, I'm not an employee of Meta. It's an independent oversight board. And in Meta, I think we found a lot of over-enforcement and a lot of under-enforcement. Yeah, so contents that are actually legitimate are being taken down in large scale, and contents that are bad are being left up, again, in large scales. And the problem is precisely because we talk about scale. We talk about 2 billion postings every day that Meta has to handle, and they've done a good job. But still, there will be enforcement errors, over enforcement or under enforcement, and the number is still huge. And I'm sure this is a problem that other platforms also find. So, and how do we deal with that? Of course, take down and lift up, they have the community guidelines, and they're trying their best, but we know it's not good enough. At the oversight board, I think we use the reference of international human rights laws on contents that should be taken down or should be left up. There is the Article 19 of the ICCPR, and Indonesia has ratified that, which tells you that you have to protect free speech, but there are exceptions that when you actually can postpone free speech, and they have this the three-part test based on law, legitimate aim, and necessary. And then once you decide that you want to remove free speech, there is also the suggestion that you have to go with the least intrusive measures. That's important, and there are other international human rights laws that can be used when you talk about fighting misinformation and disinformation. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, basically. I mean, the laws are there, and they are already tested, and these are universal. You talk about principles that can be applied across the globe. I think many of these international human rights laws are universal. Of course, then the implementation will probably be different in different countries depending on the context. Now, on the Pan-ASEAN collaboration, I was disheartened to discover that 4 member states are not signatory or have ratified the ICCPR. ICCPR, I think, is a good product, and I'm happy that Indonesia has signed and ratified. It's a good product. It actually forces you to make commitment on protection of human rights, and Article 19 of ICCPR is talking about freedom of expression. So if we have that, I think would be easier if all 10 member states of ASEAN sign and ratify that, and we talk about collaboration. The problem now is that because each member countries have different commitments to freedom of speech, so 4 countries, I should name them, Brunei, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Singapore, they have not signed. So I think as part of the SAIL work and advocacy, maybe should also try to get the other 4 ASEAN members to sign and ratify, and then we can talk about common policies or collaboration with similar commitment to freedom of expression. So that's important. So I think moving ahead, a lot of recommendations here, but just bear in mind that we should also protect free speech as we try to fight the maladies of misinformation and disinformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bagandi. Please join me in thanking all the speakers and discussants for their amazing views. We do still have 7 minutes, but I think I will not do justice if I throw to the audience to ask questions, but rather I'm going to ask all the speakers 1 minute each. What would be your takeaways from this event today, and what would be your suggestion in the 1 minute? Pak Jonathan, start with you.
Thank you very much, Philip. I think that the key takeaway that I would like to also, register here and share with you is that the emphasis on evidence-based approaches and practices. And this is something that I think we need to generate a greater body of research that really address developments unique to our region. Because there have been many, global studies and analyses out there, which I think is well and good. But it's coming to inflection point where I think that we need to stress how we can actually help also our think tanks and researchers to champion more local and targeted research on issues and matters and concerns that are unique to our region. And if I may just also address Park's question and concern there earlier, I think in ASEAN itself, the nexus between, say, human rights and fighting disinformation it's being strengthened, actually being done and carried out by the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. There have been very frank dialogues going on there with regards to how we want to ensure that in the fight against disinformation, that human rights are also not compromised, and the freedom on the internet and press is also being protected. I think that's very important. I think we recognize that as well. So I think my 1 minute is up here, but thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Next to you, Pak.
Okay, so let's start with the meaning of the digital transformations and informations handling transformations is not an objective, but it is a process. So I believe that this event is one of the process that we are transforming to answer the challenges, the current challenges of the disinformation and misinformation itself. And then, so by the research involvement of this, and also for the socializations to the people of Indonesia, I think that's one of the key takeaways.
Thank you, Pak Yoga. Next to you, Jack.
Thank you. I think what struck me is we seem to agree that there needs to be dialogue and multi-stakeholder dialogue, but also listening to the various panelists, I can tell that we could do more in terms of information sharing of each other. And so I would love to move from discussions like this, which are effectively one-offs, to much more ongoing exchanges. And we could think about a model like the IGF, right? So you've got the UN's Internet Governance Forum, which is multi-stakeholder by nature. So you don't have, governments standing over there and doing their own little thing and coming up with their little treaty or whatever they want, with input or without input. You don't have industry doing its own thing. Everybody sits around a table. And that model's worked relatively well. It could do better. But the good thing is that it's also trickled down to both the regional level with the Asia-Pac IGF, and then national level, we see that with the Indonesian IGF. And I wonder if maybe we can think of doing something like that. We've got the ASEAN platform, and I think maybe we can see how we could make this even more successful, regular, etc. But I think we do need national platforms as well, so we can have action at the local level. So I hope we can build on that in coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Jean-Jacques. Pak Miklos?
Thank you. To me, the most surprising figure in the presentations we heard today was that 24% that CSIS mentioned, only 24% of Indonesians check before they forward any information. Now, I think we don't mean fact-checking, because of course, people are not going to be fact-checkers, but just to do a simple Google search, right? So what can we do collectively to increase that number? To have what kind of education, communication, all that, all the stakeholders who are here today, if we could work together to get more people to do that. Because in most cases, this disinformation and hate speech is actually passed on as misinformation, right? A lot of the people who are conveyors of this message believe it to be true. Only the originators had sort of the bad intent. So that's one thing. The second thing is just how quickly time passes. Jean, you mentioned about WHO's content during COVID that, Google then put on the top of all the searches. And yeah, COVID seems like another era, but it wasn't that long ago. Whether these kind of partnerships are possible in so many other areas, again, for everybody to work together and get somewhere. Because if only we could make those people who spread the disinformation insignificant, it wouldn't matter. I mean, they can have thousands and thousands of pages of this, millions, as long as nobody gets to them, tough luck. We are not there yet.
Thank you, Miklos. Mbak Anita Wahid.
Yeah, I still believe in diversity, that it is a strength. And I still believe that we can create a lot of greatness based on diversity, because by the nature of diversity, it means that we have much more options to choose from, which means that we have quite a lot of possibility to explore. But if we want to start using diversity as strength, as a foundation to build a greatness, then we need to look at it seriously, not on the surface level, not only on the surface level, but actually really build the foundations of what it means to be a diverse nation, what it means to be part of a small community, but also a bigger one, what it means to be, to have a connection between us as a group, as an individual, and as a nation, as a society, and what it means to actually have a really strong bond with one another. Actually, if we can create that in Indonesia, in other Southeast Asian countries, then we become much more resilient towards disinformation and hate speech. That is actually one of the things that we can approach for our resilience towards other types of malicious intents within the digital sphere.
Thank you, Mas Pras.
Okay.
The last
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
So I think the ones, like Pak Miklos, I think the one graph that strikes me is the number of people who verified the information is very low, considerably very low. And the second one is how correlated disinformations with the trust in democracy. So I think the key takeaways that I see from this event is whatever activisms, political activisms, or whatever promotions of good things that we want to do in life, or in Indonesia in case, or in the region, we are still bounded by this reality of not a lot of people actually verifying facts. And second is how correlated our way of consuming information with our trust in democracy, in our society. So I hope that we can collaborate more and foster a healthy way of consuming informations, because if we can invest in literacy, in the culture of good information consumptions, in a culture of good information generations, I think it will help us in the long run to better having a healthy, trusting society in the future. That's all.
Thank you. Now we've reached the end of the session. I hope the conversation we have triggers more ideas, and then triggers more willingness for all of us, private sector, civil society, government, regional decision makers, and then those who are working at the global level as well, in finding, a solution, quote unquote, if you will, to this global problem that we have. And I remember I'd like to quote, I forgot who said this earlier during the keynote speakers session. It is our shared challenges, and we have to find joint solutions, because no countries can solve this problem alone. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause once again to our speakers, and I return the microphone to our MC. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our moderator, speakers. Please remain on the stage to take a group photo together. Please kindly stand up to take a picture together. The photographer, please on your position. And to all speakers, kindly look at the center of the camera. We are going to take a picture twice, like before. The first one is the formal pose. 1, 2, and 3. And the second one, free pose as you like, please. 1, 2. Okay, so we would like to invite to join us on the stage. Okay, Bapak, please join us on the stage. Thank you so much. Okay, the first session. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Second one, free pose, please. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, please give a big round of applause to our moderator and to our speakers. Thank you so much, Bapak Philips Monte, for being an amazing moderator for today's event and for the enlightening session. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time to join us today and participating this exceptional event. And I believe we have gained so much information, insights that I believe that it will be beneficial to each and every one of us. So, for this information, this seminar is hosted by Cyber Internet Lab and the Department of Politics and Social Change at CSIS in partnership with Google Indonesia. We extend our heartfelt thanks to all our distinguished guests for attending today. And please stay updated and connected with SAIL future initiatives in the coming year by following us on social media and visiting our website at Saver Internet Lab. So ladies and gentlemen, please we close this event with a big round of applause to SAIL Dialogue on Internet Safety. Thank you so much. I'm Sipahutar and wishing you all have a good afternoon. Bye bye.